Welcome to season 2 of the Just Peachy Show. I am so excited to be kicking off this next season. But first and foremost, I want to thank you for continuing to listen to the show and watch the show. Our next guest speaker is a repeat speaker or a repeat guest because last year we talked about something that really resonated with a lot of people and something that anyone could really relate to. Please help me in welcoming someone who's been in the financial services industry. He has held various executive roles as well as academic teaching roles. Welcome the head of product of Shaping Wealth, Dr. Jordan Hutchinson. Jordan, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here. I'm glad to be a repeat guest too. I always enjoy our conversations, Peachy.
Yes, last year's episode was just awesome. And people, I got a lot of feedback and I figured this is a good way for us to continue the conversation. So we're going to dig right into it. Last year we talked about flow. Right. So what's the state of flow and all that good stuff? If you haven't listened to Jordan's episode, go ahead and listen to that. So Jordan, how do you see flow in the financial services industry?
Yeah. And I'll start with just a quick recap definition for anyone that hasn't had a chance to listen to it, the first episode or our prior episode or has heard the topic before, but flow, what it is in without the academic language, is just being in the zone. So it's that state of deep absorption you're in it doing a task or an activity that's highly intrinsically motivating, and it's a task that you enjoy. So there's a lot of enjoyment from it, and it's very unique to you as a person. So it's different based on the individual finding that state of flow, and it's that deep engagement in something. Some people might call it deep work. And it's where you lose track of time doing that activity, and you look up and next thing you know, you're like, oh my gosh, 2 hours has passed by, but it's very fulfilling. And so sometimes it could be conversing with someone, you're having a great conversation, and next thing you know, 2 hours have gone by, or it could be a sport or activity. But in my focus of research, I focused on all those things at work. So the way to answer your question on the how do I see it in the financial services industry is I see it in two pieces. And so I look at it as the advisor well-being. So making sure that advisors are having the state of flow at work, because the benefits of flow is higher creativity, higher job satisfaction. It's more autonomy, higher ability of learning. So more likely to learn and intake data. And there's also spillover effects too, which is one of my favorite pieces of the research from looking at the advisor well-being is if you're having these flow states at work, you have a spillover of energy into your personal life. And so from someone that I have a spouse and kids and all of us in the world that have, other obligations outside of our day-to-day job, having that additional energy and positive outlook is pretty powerful and impactful, that you're not going home burned out and exhausted and taking all of that baggage from work. You're highly in a positive emotional state. So that's one piece. And then the other side of it is I look at how can advisors use this with their clients. And so I look at the client well-being. And so a lot of times when a client goes through a transition, or it could be at any time in the client engagement, understanding how their identity might have changed. So it could be maybe moving in. An easy one would be retirement. So we go from having all of our work relationships in the office or virtual, however it is, you've got this whole identity that's tied to it. And in the Western world, the first thing we ask people a lot of times when we meet them is, what do you do for a living? And so we have so much identity tied to that when that's taken away, or when we retire by choice, we don't have that anymore. And so it's really hard to transition. And so now you might have been getting those flow experiences at work. So now in that new phase of your life, where are you finding this engagement? And this can change too. Getting married or getting divorced or having kids, all these things, your life changes, all the activities you're involved in. And so being able to have a way to find those new tasks and activities where you can be engaged and get fulfilled is where I focus, where advisors can use those methods with clients.
That's awesome. I feel like I'm hearing a lot of what your research is about, or a preview of what your research is about. So I know you just published it, right? Am I correct? Okay. So I'm excited. Tell us about your research, much more than you've already told us.
No, for sure. And I'll go in specifically to my work, and some of that, I stand on the shoulders of giants, the people that I didn't find flow. It wasn't my bright idea. My idea is how to apply it into the financial world and how it involves in the experience of money. But the true founder, first researcher of it is a guy named Csikszentmihalyi, and most people would know his name because it's quite long, and a lot of people just called him Mike because of his length of his name. But he was the one that founded Flow and started the rigorous research on it. But my research specifically was to focus on financial planners, just because I was an advisor for 10 years. So it's something that is very passionate to me. It's the industry we both work in, and we're both passionate about bettering the industry in different facets, of course. But mine specifically focused on measuring the flow that advisors had at work, and did it predict more employee engagement, so that you can focus on when you're hiring new advisors or you're hiring planners, anyone in your staff, if they're having these specific experiences and states at work, they're going to be a better employee. There's been science to show better performance from their own individual, but also better performance as an organization, which I don't think any business owner would say, you know what, I'm good. I don't want to do better this year in our performance.
Yeah, right.
And so I found it really unique to use flow as that piece, because another thing too is our industry in the world of globalization, all the things are changing, and we're a more diverse community. Why not have something that has been found to be ubiquitous in all genders, all ethnicities, all over the world? And so that's one thing that's really, I thought was so cool about flow, is that it's not just one type of person that can have it. It could be anybody. And so that's what's so cool about it being unique. But my specific research was predicting if flow was a predictor of employee engagement for advisors. And I added one other piece to it. I added some moderating variables, which were looking at years of experience and years of financial planning experience, because we have a lot of career changers in our industry. A lot of people maybe didn't start in insurance, or did not start in financial planning, or whatever facet of the financial services world. Is that going to affect them? And my research found out it doesn't. So that's one of the biggest things, is finding out that it just validated that everyone in the industry, regardless of, if you're a career changer, early stage, or if you've been in the business 20 years, you can still have this experience, and it predicts more engagement.
And that is so important. And one thing that really is not about the numbers. I do know that in our industry, a lot of people, business owners or solo practitioners, we are so ingrained, or we are so into figuring out would the numbers work.
Right.
If the numbers work, is that a definition of success, right? But what you're saying, Jordan, is that there is this flow where actually helps predict the success of a person and a company, right? Because if someone is happy, gets into flow, and as you said, it spills out into your personal life, I mean, I call that a success.
For sure. And it's that's one reason why I'm quite passionate about it for business owners. Of course, the quantitative piece, the numbers, revenue, all those things are very important.
It has to work.
Understanding your P&L, of course. Like, I'm not downing that that's not significant in running a business, but it is helpful to know when you're managing these employees, and now you have these other advisors or other staff people, helping them focus on these areas are going to make them better. And guess what? In return, it's going to make the company better. And so that's that piece that a lot of times you don't think about, that understanding that human side of it is so significant. And that's the same thing with your clients. Yes, being a great planner, handling risk management, all those facets are so powerful. And yeah, in a client engagement, you might not lead with this conversation. You might have to triage something and say, hey, you really have a gap here. We've got to fix this before we can do B, C, D. We need to handle A. And so this might be a later conversation, but that's also a way that you're going to get more wallet share. You're going to be able to get more access because the client's going to be fulfilled, and you're going to deepen that engagement in that relationship because now you know the things that are important to this person, you know the activities in their life, and you've just, made it a better client engagement overall.
Right. And you hit the nail on the head there. As a business owner, one of the things that really, and I know people who are listening to us could relate to this, especially if they have managed people, is that having someone engaged and essentially in the state of flow, hopefully as much as possible on a day-to-day basis, is very much, it has a direct effect on the bottom line of the company. Losing an employee is very expensive. Training an employee is very expensive. And having a person working in your company, whether that's you or someone with you, who's not engaged and not loving what they're doing or not enjoying, not getting into their own flow, is also costing you money. So it's very, very, it's very important. I believe this state of flow. So I know that you have something cool that you've developed at your current position. And before we move on to that, I was wondering, was there anything in your study, anything unique that came out of your study?
Yeah. So one of the things, of course, you go in and you think, all right, well, what if I do this research and it turns out that the thing I'm passionate about has no impact on these advisors and there's no benefit. So you're a little fearful, but of course my chair and the people I was conducting the research with are like, well, Jordan, that shows that is a good solution because now you know that doesn't. So the no is also telling you something. So I was worried, but of course it did become a predictor of engagement. And so that was a positive relationship. But something unique that came out of it was the frequency that advisors were having it was rather high on the scale that I measured them. And so I thought that was quite unique to see that advisors were having these experiences at a very high level. And, we had a pretty diverse, my sample was actually more diverse in the current industry, which we can talk about demographics of the industry. The industry of financial services is not diverse in gender or ethnicity. So being more diverse in it was quite purposeful to me to be where the industry should be moving to and where it is moving towards. But understanding that, I got to see that there's still a high frequency of them having it. And the fact that, years of experience didn't matter, didn't have any impact on the relationship, and years of just financial planning experience didn't have any impact. But I found that quite unique that they were having these experiences and that advisors were, truly engaged. And so it gave me a good feeling that, hey, there's something here. And this is maybe why advisors are one of the worst at retiring. Some of them want to work until they're, late 80s, but that's a good thing because that means they're being fulfilled. And I've always wondered, this would be something to continue the research, that maybe they're getting so much benefit of helping people, and some advisors are truly making a difference in people's lives and really helping them. And it's like, when you look at financial services, it's truly a service industry where you're helping people from a risk or you're teaching them something new. Many of us, like myself, my parents didn't have an advisor growing up. I didn't grow up knowing what a financial advisor was. And so the things that I've learned over the industry, and I think so many planners that I've become friends with feel the same way, that, God, if I could just share some of this knowledge. And so they get so much energy from doing it, I've always wondered about continuing the research if that's one of the big factors that why they're having these high frequency of flow at work is because they're just truly intrinsically motivated. They enjoy it, and that's why they have that deep absorption in the work. So that was one of the big things that I found quite unique about it.
That's awesome. And actually, I was going to ask, like, was there a common denominator? You kind of answered it because they're truly interested in what they're doing. It sounds like that is a common denominator. What happens before they start having, how do you start getting into the flow of things? I guess that's really my question was. And in your research, was there something particular that kind of, it's like, a fire starter, so to speak,
Right.
what ignites it?
Yeah, and so that's one of the things that I'm building right now is, and hope to have more on next year, is in 2020 or in 2024 and the continuing years, but is having a way to truly measure it. And so that's one of the things we're implementing this year and hope to just build on is giving those certain questions, certain things for advisors to reflect on, and to be able to find those exact tasks, those exact activities where when they look back, all right, looking back at your week, basically giving yourself a self-assessment or a measurement of, hey, here's where I really felt at my best. And then now you can expand on that and say, all right, my time with clients is where I really just feel at my best. I feel that enjoyment. I feel that just that positive emotion from it. This is something that I need to be doing more. And that could also play into who do I hire next? What do I outsource next? So that you can do that. If it's truly building plans and it might not be with clients, you might need to pick up a business partner or a colleague that's where they feel at their best so that you can focus on where you are. And there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. It's not saying that you don't like people. It's just, this is where you are at your best and what you enjoy doing. So that's one of the things we're working on right now to add into practices where people can use these tools and frameworks with the advisor's well-being. And to continue on the client side is if they're assessing it and it's important to them as an advisor, using it with their clients now, just to create the word flow in the relationship. A lot of times, most people might not know that flow is a thing. They might have felt it before or enjoyed doing something, but making it apparent and making it salient to them could be really important. And that's really one of the most important things with people for a transition is finding that. And then we've had this conversation before where where a client, her husband passed, and after we got through some of the more technical piece of it, we started to talk about like her life. What is she doing? Is she getting back into the rhythm of things? And I tested one of my assessments of flow on it. I didn't, drop the word flow and all this, but just started having a simple conversation with her that we're building. And she found out that she'd missed knitting. And that was one of my favorite client engagements where I tested this out. And she gave us the best feedback in the world that it was just so nice to get back into it. It was something she was able to create something for her grandkids. And it just kept snowballing into so many things. But there's so many small little unique things like that on the personal side and on the work side that it's been fulfilling for me to see as we tested it out in the trenches of day-to-day financial planning.
I love it. And that's really something that a lot of people could relate to. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think everybody has that one thing that they can get themselves into and just forget about the rest of the world, essentially, right? You're just immersed in this one thing, whether that's knitting or, some people play basketball, some people, do other stuff, right?
Right. And when you're looking at it from the personal side like that, it's that's where it really makes an impact in the client's life. I mean, of course, when you're talking to a client, like if they're not having these experiences at work too, then, maybe there's a way that they can use their capital of their wisdom and their resources to do a different job role with the same skill set they have. But you're exactly right. And that's why I love it. It's unique to every person that they have these abilities, and you lose your sense of self So you're not worried about, what's going to happen tomorrow and what's going on in the world. You lose that sense of self. And that's why, I make the joke sometimes. It's like, why do we have some of the best thoughts like when we're in the shower sometimes? Because, we lose that our minds go in and we give that almost like some, hate to say the word boredom, but we give ourselves some space. And so when you go in that flow state, you lose that sense of self. And that's why you're just at your best.
Yeah. And, I think boredom is good. Boredom is good. I grew up, I'm going to have to date myself here. And I grew up not having screen in front of me all day long. Right now, you and I and the youth are exposed to so much screen time, computer, TV, phone, iPads, everywhere, there's screen everywhere.
That's a whole nother piece of flow too. That's just the demand for your attention is so high. We're getting literally while we're here, I might have a Slack message come in or a text message come in, or some kind of notification on my watch. Our demand for attention is so high right now, like just stuff coming at us at all times. And this is why flow is really important for advisors, because as we were talking before here, that running a business, you have so many things going on in your day that you have to be really purposeful of them. And that's what flow does, is it really makes you think about those tasks and activities so that you can stay engaged, because distraction is one of the worst things that's gonna hurt you getting into that state.
It'll totally derail you. So I have a question, Jordan, about that. Is there something that you would recommend that, let's say sometimes you just want to purposely get into flow, right? But there's so much stuff going on, so much stuff around you. Is there something in particular that you can, like an advice, maybe, here, just do this. Maybe that will help. Like,
so and it's one of those things you got to think about, like, when were you at your best, or when did you feel like you've got so much work done, or, and a little bit of stress. So there's this thing called eustress that's like a positive stress. So having like a goal or a deadline, sometimes that, and a lot of times that is very good. And when you create a goal, obviously you're going to create a mile marker when you pass that goal line. But having a little bit of that can induce you into getting into stress, because you're like, all right, look, I have to get this done. But when you think of that, what did you do? Some people, it's like, all right, and this is actually something I used when I've had to write a paper or blog post or something, or a long follow-up email for a client, just to get all of my thoughts out, is I had a cue, which was my tea. I would drink a certain type of tea. It would get me in that focus. I would remove the distractions, and I would get there. And next thing you know, I would been going for over an hour, typing up, working, getting a lot of things done. So some people, they don't mind the noise. So they might use like headphones and put on some kind of classical music that helps them level out their head and get in that state. And then one that I've actually seen with advisors, that I tested it with an old advisor colleague of mine, that he used a method called the Pomodoro, which he had these little hourglasses, and he would flip it over, and for 25 minutes he did this one task. And a lot of times he would pick like one client that he had to get stuff done, and he would have those 25 minutes, and he would get everything he needed to get done, where you thought that might have taken an hour, 2 hours worth of work. He would get it done, take a 5-minute break, because rest, like we said, boredom is good at times. Rest is very important. Sleep, not an expert in all those things, but we all know those are important for our well-being. But he would do that, and he would have those short peak experiences of flow. And so it was really cool to see just out in the wild that working. And I've seen a few advisors embrace that, because it just helps them be really purposeful. So there's three that I've seen advisors use to get into that state that I think a lot of people can resonate with. For me, I do complete silence, and we'll drink a certain orange tangerine tea, and next thing you know, I'll write 2 or 3 pages worth of work, or get a lot of tasks done.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So you and I can talk about this all day. Oh, we have limited time. So I'm going to pivot a little bit, right? So right now you have this super cool project that you just launched,
Right.
and it is called Outsource Chief Behavioral Officer,
Right.
or OCBO, right? So tell us about OCBO, please.
Yeah. So OCBO, it's to most people, it's probably a new word or acronym because there's a few industries you're starting to see them pop up, especially in financial services, a chief behavioral officer role in the C-suite, with CEO, COO, CFO, all those things. And what we found as a team is that all of my team at Shaping Wealth, we all have different backgrounds from the financial services world and how it overlays into the behavioral. One of our co-founders is Joy Leary. She's a practicing clinical psychologist. And then Neil Beige, he comes from the risk tolerance and the heavy tech world and design and how all that impacts behavior. And then Brian Portnoy, our founder, he spent 20 plus years in the institutional money management, hedge fund, heavy investment world and how human behavior impacts that. So all four of us have these different lenses, and we all started to notice that there's just this huge need for behavioral science and how it is truly a application based to the financial services or financial planning world. So how do you use this great evidence, all this psychology, neuroscience, all this stuff from the broad psychology and behavioral science world and apply it into the human side of money and the human experience of money? And so that's why we wanted to create the Outsource Chief Behavioral Officer. And we did outsourced because when you see these chief behavioral officer roles, they're usually pretty expensive.
Oh,
And a lot of times it's these very, very large banks that are the people that have them. So those people are getting paid a large salary, and it's just not applicable to the whole industry. There's firms of all shapes and sizes that we work with. We work with some of those very large firms, and then we also work with the one-person shop. And that's really what we wanted to do, is we wanted to offer a solution to use the science and wisdom of all of the different interdisciplinary of well-being to the whole global wealth management industry. And so that's what OCBO is. We're taking all of that psychology, neuroscience, sociology, all of that research. We're creating it where you can use it on your own well-being as an advisor, and as stuff, tools, frameworks, anything of content for your client experience too. So we've built that into a platform with multiple tiers depending on what level you want to take. And we really focus on making it snackable, is what we say. Mm-hmm. Snackable. And the reason why we say snackable is none of us have the capacity or time to read, 30-minute article unless it's like a Friday or Saturday or something, or maybe you're laying in bed. During our workday, we're busy, and time is, a lot of advisors, there's a time scarcity. So we wanted to make all of this deliverable so that you can digest it, use it in your firm, use it with your client, use it internal in your firm's training, and it truly scales to that for your practice. And so you tier up, you get more of our time from like a coaching standpoint. So we have a group coaching feature where every quarter we do a thing called Amplify. And so we bring a topic to advisors on something with their practice. This month, actually, we are doing one where Dr. Joy Leary, she's talking about where do we draw the line between financial advising and financial therapy. Mm-hmm. Let's come into this industry. We wanted to be advisors. We didn't want to be therapists.
Yeah.
We make the joke sometimes, clients come in and they give us all this, all that's going on in their lives. And that's okay. And that's why we're here. But where do you got to figure out where there's a problem that says, hey, I'm here to talk about what's most important to you, your values and things like that, and all the technical side of financial planning. But if we cross this line, I need to refer you to an expert in this field. And that's a growing space to figure out where that line is in the sand. And so Joy's doing a whole workshop on that. And so it's really cool to see that. That's just one of the features, but we have actually 6 features we released, and we're constantly every quarter going to try to add at least 1 or 2 new features.
That sounds very, very interesting. And I love the idea that it's tiered. right? So it could be based on what this person or company believes they would need. Is there such thing as a community in it? I mean, would I say I'm an advisor? I'm like, okay, I'm going to sign up for this, Jordan. Do I get to know and share and be part of other like-minded advisors like myself, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, and you're 100% right. And that's actually one of my favorite things is the community side of it, and just seeing that community has become so important in the financial advisory world, and in so many other areas too, that you want to know like-minded people that are having the same struggles, or in our advisor community, we always want to know what's the advisor that's doing so well, what are they doing that I don't know, and we love to learn that way. But there is a big community piece, and since we are global and we have clients in the UK, we have clients Canada, we have them all over the world actually. We've created just different mastermind groups within the community too, but we have that community advisors so that they can converse and talk about, and we really try to push an abundance mindset that, hey, if you're talking about something you're using your client experience, it's completely fine, because there's enough people that can use your knowledge and your services and ability out there that they're not going to be stealing it away from you. So the community feature is really cool. It's actually one of my favorite features of our platform. So you can talk to other advisors, and of all different shapes and sizes. So this might be an advisor that has a huge enterprise of 100 employees. They have a firm, they have a few people that are on the platform, and this is a person that's working out of his garage, starting his RIA that just went public, became real, registered, not publicly traded, but public, like it became a real thing. And so they can converse, and it gives them a platform that they can talk and message each other, connect. And I think that's really helpful, because just from my personal experience, I worked at one time early in my career in a large firm, and I learned so much from all of these men and women I worked with. But then when I was at a smaller firm, you have like 2 or 3 people you can go to. And so it's hard. And so you want to have that feature where you can have a safe space to ask questions.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Any industry nowadays, especially, we are a developing industry, I think, towards, being, the financial services industry is very diverse. There are sectors of it that I believe is developing and morphing into more, if it weren't personal before, it's become a heck of a lot more personal now than ever. So as a solo practitioner, and I work with a lot of solo practitioners, one thing that I always hear advisors say is that it's so hard not to have anyone to bounce ideas off of. Right. And not that you don't know what you're talking about, but it's just always good to have a second person.
Right.
Right. And just, just a little bit of let's just solidify that idea, or let's just kick that idea because it's a very bad idea. So anyway, I have like, again, this is another subject that we can talk about all day long, but I think that OCBO is a very cool tool, if I could call it a tool, and that it sounds like it's something that every firm should really be thinking about. Right. So from a pricing standpoint, and obviously that's probably the question that you get asked, is this something that is, you have tiers, like how, if you're a solo practitioner, I have people who are solos right now listening to us, and they're in their maybe second year of business. Right. Like, would they even, can they afford this? Would they even think about this? Or what do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and that's why we made it. We have some more immersive coaching programs that are at a higher price, and those aren't for some, there's certain stages in your career that you go for those, and anyone that tries to sell you on spending some of that money doesn't understand the early stages of a business, is that you're really trying to keep this thing going, use that energy and the build on top of it, keep getting new clients. And spending time with clients is some of the best marketing, in my opinion, because then the service you're giving is how that you'll get referrals from them. But that's why we built the pricing that we did, is so that one person shop could sign up. And that's really why we built it at scale that way. and that larger firms, if they want to have more engagement, but we also built it so that if a larger organization wanted to buy seats for all of their advisors, it's at a price point that affords them that ability. And so right now the pricing is, and we're doing, this is the off the rack pricing is $150 for the bottom tier, $250 for the second tier, and then $1,500 for the third tier, which is more of our coaching tier. And all of that's actually going 30% off right now because we wanted to have a new product release special for everyone to join and be able to have it, and they get that at an annual price. And we're coming out actually in the coming months with partnerships that we plan to do, so that there's also additional discounts that you can get in and be more involved in the community. But I really think that that's one of the best benefits, is that we feel that this could be for all types of firms, because what we're delivering is so that you can have better client engagement. And a lot of our content and coaching material is so that you can truly have better conversations around the things that matter. And some of the language we use at Shaping Wealth is, we believe that the financial advisor is a mechanic and a guide. They're a mechanic when they're doing the technical, you're implementing maybe a complex life insurance policy or some kind of structure in that way, or a complex trust, how that's all working out, or some kind of complex planning strategy that might not be as complex to us as advisors, but it's something that you want to make sure the client fully understands. That's a heavy mechanic. If I took my car into the shop, I have no idea. I just go, hey, can you fix this for me? Because this little light's going on. And that's kind of how it is with us. Like, hey, I'm looking at retirement. Can you help me figure out what to do with this retirement? Yes, there's this huge portfolio allocation, all that kind of stuff. But then there's that other piece of the relationship, which is the guide, where you're guiding them, you're having those conversations. Well, I get it, you want to retire, but what time frame? When do you want to retire? Do you want to fully retire, or do you want to go part-time? Or do you actually feel like you want to retire because that's what everyone else is saying? And maybe you don't, and that's fine. Yeah. You can work till the day you die if that's what you want. That's why we're going to be the guide, have those conversations. And that's really where we fit in. We're not talking about planning strategies. We're talking about how to have those better conversations around what's important to the client and how it ties into those heavy technical and mechanic conversations.
Yeah. And one thing that I picked up on what you were just saying here also is that a lot of people could be very good on the technical side. And what you're going to be helping with is what I call the soft side, right? And the soft side, this is the science of the soft side, but it's not really something that you say, okay, I'm going to be Jordan, Dr. Hutchinson here, and start researching and figuring this out. So here you are, you're going to give them a tool, a roadmap, help to deal with that side of their business and essentially also their lives. So that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
So,
sorry to interrupt. I'll say one. There was an example. I was talking to an advisor this morning, and I told her about when I was an advisor, and this was years ago, early in my career. I had a client and she was getting a divorce. She was the breadwinner. She was a business owner. And this was like you said, I won't state my age, but this was when I was in my mid to late 20s. And I had not been married yet. I had no insight into divorce, how all that worked. But this client came to me and she needed me to help her with this whole situation. That's a human behavior side that we are not trained in graduate school or certain certifications. Yeah. And that's, I'm not saying that just divorce is what we're working on, but that's just a human piece. Mm-hmm. We're all humans. And having that conversation, I learned so much. And that was the turning point in my career where I was like, hey, this isn't just about the numbers and money and portfolios and funds and whatever. There is a whole human side that you have to work with. And that was a roller coaster, but I learned a lot. And that's, one of the big salient times in my career where I was like, hey, this is real. And you need to have some kind of understanding, because if not, that client's going to leave because they're looking to you for guidance and support.
And maybe someone else who can actually provide that that accommodation on the soft side of things, right? And not just the numbers. That's who they're going to go with. So I love that this is not just for the people or the bigger companies who can shell out a lot of money. So it's good, if you're listening, and I think that there are some people who's listening and thinking, wait, I think maybe I need this for my firm. I would say that you should look into it. So Jordan, how did they look you up, the information about OCBO?
Sure. Yeah. So the best way to find me is to find myself, Jordan Hutchinson on LinkedIn is probably the best way to find me. Feel free to connect or follow. That's a lot of times I'll post updates and things like that. And if you have a question more specifically to flow, what we're working on, anything like that, feel free to send me a message. I try to be very helpful in all of that. I love to, anytime I've spoken to colleges and universities, I always offer that because I wish I could have asked so many questions when I was in school because I had no idea what actually a financial advisor did or anything like that. But that's the best way to find me. To find Shaping Wealth, go to shapingwealth.com, and you can actually go to the /OCBO to find the specific OCBO page. But it's very easy to find, but shapingwealth.com is where you can find all the things that we're doing. We constantly update it, put things out on there. And through that, you can reach out to any of us on the team.
That's awesome. Jordan, thank you. Thank you as usual. I love this conversation. Like I said, it can go on forever, but I thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, Peachie. I always enjoy our chats.
Have a great day, Jordan. Bye. Information shared during the show are opinions of the speakers. They are not legal, financial, or tax advice specific to you. Consult your own specialist, attorney, accountant, financial planner, or insurance advisor for your specific situation.